All right, Hatim, what do you think of the Columbus Day that we celebrate, or should we not celebrate?
I think we should not celebrate Columbus Day. Columbus was a rapist, a murderer, and spread disease throughout America.
Rupesh, what are your thoughts on that? Do you agree or disagree?
I think that I would disagree. Those are some very salient points. I think it is true that Columbus, when perceived through the lens of the modern era, he appears to be a figure that deserves to be vilified. But I think that if you look at it from the era from where he belonged to, he was actually an exemplary figure because he did what very few people at that time could do. He had the ability to go out and seek a new world. And even though he was trying to find India and he never found it, and he believed dying that he did, I don't think that precludes him from being celebrated necessarily because his achievement was monumental to the world. And I think we should celebrate anything which has a sufficient mark on history.
So, Hatim, based on his opinions and thoughts on Columbus Day, do you think we should celebrate, or do you think we should not celebrate Columbus Day as a part of his character, or because the whole day is a fraud? What do you think?
I definitely think the whole thing is just fraud. I think his points are necessarily true that Columbus went for something that no other European tried to do. But we have to remember, he wasn't the first person to do this. The Vikings also landed in North America way before Columbus even bothered to do it. Just the fact that the Europeans at the time did not acknowledge the Vikings and their accomplishments. And while the spirit of discovery and exploration is great and all, again, it wasn't uncommon for people to discover other places, and Columbus wasn't doing anything new.
All right. So your opinion is that he discovered a lot of lands and he inspired discovery, but
Yeah.
some would argue that he would spur on the notion of sectarianism, where two different beliefs would combine, and when he discovered lands, there was an idea of the Europeans conquering all over the Indian lands or the native lands. What do you think about that?
I agree with that. First, I want to address the Viking point. Vikings did sail around 800 AD, and they found a location up near Ontario. They settled and they found Vinland. But the interesting thing about that was that they never really sailed back. And I think that's the key distinguishment that separates Columbus from the Vikings, because Columbus really opened up this new territory for Europe. And I think that the fact that he advanced globalization is why he deserves to be celebrated, because I think the world has progressively been getting better as it's coalesced into bigger and bigger states. I think things improve for people, and for this to happen, I think that sometimes violence can even though it's a horrible thing, can actually create progress in society. And I think when this does happen, for someone who facilitates such a leap in society, I think Columbus deserves to be recognized for that.
All right. And final thoughts, Hatim. What do you think of his arguments? And I might have a question for you if time permits.
I think the globalization point is very interesting. It's different. You think about the trade and the fact the Vikings did not actually go back to Europe, and you would never know if they're gonna, they'll be able to open the sea routes. That's definitely a new point that I never really thought about. I think Columbus, in the end, it's always gonna be a big debate over whether we should celebrate or not. But I think it's more we shouldn't in the end, just because even though some of the things were very positive, a lot of negatives occurred from his sail to America. Obviously, we still have our country now, and we still owe some credit to Columbus for coming to America, and we know that America exists thanks to him. It's just that a lot of his values are not the same, such as forcing people into Christianity and killing them over being Christian. These are some other controversial things that he just did that we just don't want to tolerate in our current society.